States of America and the Prime Minister of the State of Israel will now sign the Jerusalem US-Israel Strategic Partnership Joint Declaration. This historic document reaffirms the unbreakable bond between the United States of America and the State of Israel and paves the way to a future of increased partnership based on shared values and a shared vision.
This historic document reaffirms, feels a little bit of a catch-22, a little bit of a sort of like that if something is historic, why would it be reaffirming? But that's exactly what it did. So this is a US-Israel Strategic Partnership Joint Declaration, which basically reaffirms these two countries, as if it needed to be reaffirmed, that that they are in agreement when it comes to Iran and the Abraham Accords. Now, if that worries you or makes you question what President Biden is doing, you would be right, because actually the Iran deal is something that was brokered under President Obama that Israel was vehemently against, and something that President Donald Trump also was against and worked to undermine. If you're wondering what the Abraham Accords was, that were accords that would normalize relations between UAE, Bahrain, and Israel with other countries in tow, other Middle Eastern countries to come along later, that essentially says, look, Israel, we don't need you to solve the Palestinian question. We don't need you to do a peace process with Palestinians. We're just gonna normalize relations with you anyway. And again, remember, this was sort of a leverage point for the Palestinian people who, need I remind you, live under Israeli occupation every single day. But here we have it, just another signature. So Biden is in the Middle East this week. If y'all don't know, today he's actually meeting with Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But look, mainstream media is calling this as it is. While much of his foreign travel in his first 18 months in office has focused on reversing the policy of former President Donald Trump and shoring up battered alliances, Biden on his first trip to the Middle East will embrace the Trump era Abraham Accords that normalize relationships between Israel and several Arab countries. But Palestinians are like, what the hell? What is this? What's going on here? Palestinian officials are obviously urging the US to do more to hold Israel accountable for just the most recent killing of Palestinian American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh in May, which the US State Department said last week were likely the result of gunfire from Israeli Defense Forces positions during an IDF-led raid in the West Bank. But there's a caveat. So the State Department caveated their conclusion, however, saying that a forensic analysis could not reach a definitive conclusion regarding the origin of the bullet that killed Abu Akleh. The statement angered the Abu Akleh family, who wrote a letter to Biden saying his administration failed to conduct a thorough probe into her killing. Yeah, so you wonder the timing of that. Oh, we don't see any direct evidence that was the IDF. Now Biden is gonna go to Israel and everything's gonna be hunky-dory. But so now let's talk about Israel and Saudi Arabia, actually, who are very much in agreement about isolating Iran, are very much in agreement about the Abraham Accords, seemingly aren't on the same side, but actually, in fact, very much are on the same side when it comes to isolating both Palestinians and the Iranians. And this is what Biden was saying on the campaign trail, because Shireen Abu Akleh is not the only civilian that has died at the hands of these murderous governments, right? We have Jamal Khashoggi, an American journalist, another journalist, who was killed under Mohammed bin Salman's rule, dismembered and likely taken out of a consulate in Turkey. Biden had some tough words for him on the campaign trail and what he would do once he was president. Let's remember this.
President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders. Would you?
Yes, and I said it at the time. Khashoggi was in fact murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to in fact sell more weapons to them. We were going to in fact make them pay the price and make them in fact the pariah that they are.
So is he treating them like a pariah? Well, visiting Saudi Arabia doesn't really feel like a pariah thing, although he might not dance with them around a sword and an orb. But just lastly, when Biden travels to Jeddah on Friday, he will attend a meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council +3, Egypt, Iraq, and Jordan. He will hold a bilateral meeting with Saudi King Salman and his advisors, including, again, Prince MBS. Some US officials told CNN they're hoping that MBS and Biden have some one-on-one time as part of the meeting, though the choreography will likely be driven by the Saudi hosts. In other words, I wonder if he's gonna get his chance. According to CNN, they say Biden is likely to bring up the Khashoggi murder, US officials told CNN, and the administration is hoping MBS will acknowledge some responsibility for the crime. While oil production is not expected to be the main topic of the meeting, US officials do expect the topic to arise. There's hope that the kingdom will commit to increasing production in the weeks following the meeting. Finally, if you guys don't know, Saudi Arabia, obviously one of the world's largest oil producers, is basically saying, we don't wanna make any more oil. Anyway, hey, how about you drop that whole Khashoggi thing and then we'll think about it. So he's between a rock and a hard place, but Rick, thoughts on this?
Yeah, there's a lot. When you say like getting to know each other and have one-on-one time, like how I view getting to know each other now is when we learned about Steve Mnuchin and Jared Kushner and now Donald Trump with sports and politics again, his golf courses getting tons of money from the Saudis, where Jared and MBS would text each other and call each other their first names. So look, dude, it's never gonna get like that. The second point is, it's not a surprise that many of us, once again, on this very small aisle, is we never wanted Joe Biden to be president. Because we knew what he is about. We know that he, like many others, would lie. Track record isn't amazing. There is a reason why we pushed for other candidates. Now, very quickly, I did just notice this because I was very inspired by him. I keep Michael Brooks's book on my desk here because he taught me a lot when it comes to this subject, because quite honestly, and I'm being very real here, I went to a temple that was a little more conservative, not completely, but just like a little. But then hearing the stories outside of your own world was really jarring to me. And he also helped me with that as well. And he once said, my Jewish values teach me to oppose apartheid. That's exactly how I feel about this subject as well. It is so eye-opening. And one of the other things that you didn't mention was, as I recall, there was a Palestinian nurse who was tending to people on the front lines a few years ago. She was shot and killed by Israeli authorities. There are so many human rights violations that do not know any border. Human rights violations are human rights violations. What Saudi Arabia is doing specifically in my wheelhouse, which is Formula 1, Live Golf, using sports to, the term is sports wash their reputation. So it's a little more appealing to be like, oh, they hosted a tournament, they must not be that bad. When really they're killing previously 81 people on a single day. Human rights violations are human rights violations. We should be calling this out and we should not be teaming up with these people.